Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. Games Workshop have very kindly sent me a review copy of the Wood Elf Realms Arcane Journal and cards as well. So let's take a look.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Make sure you check out their old world compatible range. It's expanding all the time. New ranges are being added soon. Look at these fantastic generals tokens to help those of you who are forgetful remember in-game effects and spells and things like that. And look at these old world legacy army token sets as well. Again, more of these are being added all the time and very nice they are. Check out the link in the video description.
And before we dive into the book, I just want to give you a little heads up of what kind of review to expect. It's going to be an overview of the whole book, not just the rules section at the back. And I know other channels and podcasts out there will do a really excellent job of delving into the meta side of things, the competitive side of things, of the rules. I will touch on that a little bit because it actually interests me as well, but I'm also a casual gamer and a narrative gamer as well. So I'm really interested and excited in how these books add to the overall game for a wide range of players who play in different ways, be that at home, in your garage, in your club, or at events. Also, by the time you're watching this, I have no idea whether all the information in this has already been leaked. The last few releases, the rules section at the back has been leaked ahead of time, be that just a few days or even a couple of weeks in some cases, like the Empire book. So some of the things I'm talking about may have already been discussed ad nauseum. At the point of recording, this is all completely secret. Nobody knows it's coming, so it's really exciting. But by the time you're watching this, who knows? But anyway, let's get started. So let's briefly start with these. Sometimes a bit Marmite. Some fans absolutely love them. Some people just wouldn't touch them and make their own. But let's have a very quick look. I'll give my honest thoughts on these. I think they look fantastic and they were a lovely thing. And I like cards to help me remember things in game. You can make them yourselves, but I don't think that's the problem because the people who will make their own will make their own. The biggest issue for me with all of these card packs is they don't include any of the stuff that's in the Arcane Journal. It's only the Grand Army List, magic items and spells, etc. So they feel incomplete. And then, like me, if you're going to have a set like this, I'd like them all to match. So if I'm forced to make my own cards for the things that aren't included, then for me it's going to look scruffy and not quite matched. But what is actually here is very good. But for whatever reason, I'm sure there'll be a business decision around why they weren't done. I imagine these were all printed a year or so ago before the Arcane Journals were completed, and it's all part of a big print run, and that's why they're limited. Something like that. There'll be a business decision around why those things aren't there, but in terms of how it affects us as gamers and the quality of the product overall, I think it is missing out on not having those things. If they had sets that were combined with the Arcane Journal out at the same time as the Arcane Journal, that seems to fit nicely. So that would be my constructive feedback on it. What's in here is very, very nice, but it is missing stuff you need, and primarily from the release that goes alongside it. Now onto the book. As with all of these, it is a full colour softback book, nice and glossy and shiny throughout. 48 pages, not including the inside covers. I love these designs. They have a different one for each faction, so it's really cool to see them get their full sort of colour reveal there. And then we move on to the first few pages, and like all of them, they are setting up the lore. If you're returning to Warhammer now through the old world, because the Wood Elves were your faction and now they're back, you're ready to go, the biggest thing you will notice is, obviously with these books being smaller, is the amount of background in these books is a little bit lighter, and they do a very good job of still covering the broad brushstrokes. In fact, there's quite a lot of detail there considering the reduced word count. But we kind of start with the story of the Wood Elves and how they evolved from the High Elves. So we have the Ethan Arvin, or the Old World in its elven name. We talk about the High Elf colonies in the Old World and how they developed, the discovery of Athel Loren. We also have that kind of background stuff around the Sundering and the War of the Beard, which are really, really important in elven stories, and then the birth of the Azrai and the Oak of Ages. So all of that stuff is in there. I would suggest going to read it if you are new to Warhammer the Old World and you like the look of Wood Elves. They are a perfect way of kind of giving you an early stage look at the Wood Elves. But if you want more detail, I'd recommend going and picking up something like the 4th edition Warhammer Army book from eBay, or find it online somewhere, and you'll get all of that story developed that little bit further. Then we have a full colour map, which is a zoomed in section of Athel Loren from that beautiful interactive map. Do go and check that out on warhammertheoldworld.com, I believe. If you haven't already, it's great fun to scroll around and click on all of the different elements, and there's no different here with this map. And then we have more lore as it slowly starts to develop into the sort of the modern, in inverted commas, age. This is still sort of background stuff here, talking about the way the Wood Elves rule and work and society works, and they do a really good job of breaking it down into these little sections, bringing it up to speed for the current time period of Warhammer the Old World. Then there's some colour pages. We have some lovely colour plates with, it gives you painting ideas. It talks a little bit about Kindreds as well. So just in a few images and a few words, we get an idea of different paint schemes or different ideas on how Kindreds work. And then we move on to more lore. Again, this is all beautifully presented. I like the sepia tones. We've seen this throughout the Old World theming so far in all of their rule books. The lore now is moving very much into that current period, and you see the date here mentioned at the top is 2278, and there's a lot of focus around Orion as well, and Crowmore, the Prophet of Ruin, which is a special character that we know is coming for the Beastman. It's already been announced, and that's cool. I'm not going to read any of this to you, but it shows you how much of the current world politics and things that are there. So it gives you an idea of what's going on in the current setting. Now, I'm not going to spoil any of that lore for you, and I may do a lore video in a few weeks' time. I need to get back on my lore videos, and I've got a lot planned for those, so that might be something to look out for. But we got this beautiful colour map which shows a little bit about the sort of direction of movement in that campaign. And then, as common now with these Arcane journals, we have a narrative scenario which is usually heavily linked to that current lore that's just been explained to you. And there's no difference here. We have the Prophet and the Hunter, and we have an attacking Wood Elves under Orion and of 2,500 point army, and then there's defending Beastmen, and then there's 2 armies there, one 1,500 points and one 2,000. There's a main force and there's an ambushing force as well. It's really cool. Crowmore's in it, and you're trying to kind of escape the attacking Wood Elves, and there's different victory points for different things. So again, very, very fun if you like to play your narrative battle reports, and it fits really nicely in with all that lore that you've just read. So if narrative and lore-based gaming is one for you, this could be a really, really fun one. And it's nice to see the mention of Crowmore and even what page he's on in the Beastman Brayherd's Arcane Journal, which hopefully will be coming really soon. We then have a few pages of the lovely, sexy, full colour shots, which are always lovely to look at, and it's inspiring still to me as much now as it was when I was a sort of 13, 14-year-old first looking at books of Warhammer. It's always very cool at the moment to go back and see some old miniatures and see if you can spot anything that may be coming in the future. I think one thing that's clear from this Arcane Journal at the moment, I can't see anything that we've not seen before, and currently there's no new miniature for the Wood Elves. If we follow the kind of the pattern of some of the artwork that's used on the magic cards and the magic pages in the main rulebook, some of those pieces of new art have been made into miniatures with a familiar, and there is a Wood Elf drawing with a familiar, so maybe we'll be lucky and there's something will come along in the future. A bit like the Friedel the Chainmaker miniature came a little while after the Warriors of Chaos release. So fingers crossed on that one. I'm not sure. I'm not saying it's coming. I have no information on that, but as it stands, there's no new miniatures for the Wood Elves, but there's a lot of really cool ones returning as it is. And that takes us roughly halfway through the books. We've set the scene with the old lore retold, and then we have the current Warhammer, the Old World timeline lore as well, which develops the narrative scenario that's there, or supported by that narrative scenario, and leads us into the Armies of Infamy and some of the characters that we'll see as well, because they're all linked and themed together. And what I like about it is that narrative does run throughout the book, regardless of how you use those stat lines and miniatures in your game. There is a story to be told with them. They're not just there for no purpose whatsoever. And there's also loads of space, and whether we'll see more Arcane journals or not, I'm not sure. There's definitely space for adding another one of these for every single faction. When you add another 2 Armies of Infamy and new characters and expand that Old World timeline lore a little bit more, so maybe that's something we'll see, which would be really cool, and hopefully they have the time to do that. So then we start moving into what I would call the rules section, but it is not all rules because each army of infamy has its own lore-based setting as well. So it's almost 50% lore here, which is really cool. So we have the hunters in the wild, which is leading on to our first army of infamy, and it's all Orion based and hunt based, as you can imagine. Again, I won't read that lore to you, but it's lovely presented. You've got some nice little pictures here as well to give you ideas around banners and things. And then we move into that first army of infamy, which is the Wood Elf Realms Orion's Wild Hunt, and we'll take a little look at that now. Now, being the hunt, this is in many ways the Wood Elves version of the cavalry army of infamy that we've seen with other factions, but there are infantry models that you can run in this as well, so it's not going to be 100% cavalry, but you could definitely run it that way if you wanted to. Character wise, it's a little bit more restricted. There's no tree men there. You've got a Glade Lord, 1 per 1,000 points, Shadow Dancer, Spellsinger, Waystalkers, 1 per 1,000 points, and then you've got Glade captains there. Your core 25% minimal, so we've not moved up to that 33% that we've seen with maybe with the high elves in the last Arcane journal. I quite like that. It would have been fun to see that. We got 0 to 1 unit of wild riders per 1,000 points and glade riders, so that's just your core. So it's very much you are taking mounted as your core, and this is where that theme is strong there. And cool to see wild riders in core as well. Special up to 50%, so that's all standard. And then you've got 0 to 1 unit of Sisters of Thorn. I'm sure they will find their way into this army, probably 2 units at 1 per 1,000 points. Then you do have some infantry with war dancers, but then you've got Warhawk Riders, Wild Riders again, and Wood Elf Beast Packs, which is, I suppose, new, but also old. So we've got a new profile for these later in the book. The miniatures are very old, though, go back quite a way. In rare, 25%, and you have 0 to 1 unit of Way Watchers per Waystalkers. That's much the same as the Grand Army. 0 to 3 Eagles, that's the same as well. Then we've got Deepwood Scouts and Wildwood Rangers. So you can get quite a lot of infantry in there as well as you want. So you can have lots of scouty, shooty, hidey stuff, and then lots of hard-hitting cavalry and some magic cavalry as well. So this does have the potential to be pretty tasty, I think. And you can have a Glade Captain in your army, can be upgraded to a BSB. Now, for the army, special rules are often the things that really make a difference and help decide whether it's the right army to take or not. So let's have a little look at these. Chieftains of the Hunter King essentially give Wood Elf Nobles the Talismanic Tattoo special rule at the cost of 10 points. That's a pretty straightforward one. Spirit of Kurnos is a little bit different. 0 to 1 unit of Glade Riders, Warhawk Riders, or Wood Elf Beast Packs per 1,000 points have the Furious Charge, an Impetuous special rule at a cost of 10 points per unit. Furious Charge, really good. Impetuous could be a little bit more tricky, especially if you're running a lot of Wild Riders. So this army could hit really, really hard, I think, especially with the ability to take extra magic with your Sisters of Thorn. But I'd also wonder how hard they're going to be controlled if everyone is impetuous and charging when you don't want them to. I really love the last one, Worthy of Kurnos. It's so thematic and works perfectly for the hunt. You are marking either a single enemy character or monster for the hunt, and then all models in Orion's army get to re-roll natural ones shooting or combat against that nominated unit, which is really cool. And bonus then on top of that is 100 victory points if they are slain or are fled from the battlefield at the end of the game, which again is just really, really cool. Now, I think it's really interesting. I think the theme is absolutely fantastic, and the ability for that army to hit really hard and be well supported by magic as well. And you can have Orion in there. He can fit in all army compositions, and we'll see his profile a little bit later on. So I think it could be really good, and Orion hits quite hard himself. So I think the whole army could be really tasty if you can control all that impetuous nature of a lot of your troops. A lot of the bonuses around them are hitting hard with that payoff of control as well. So I'd love to know what people think of that in the comments. Is it going to be too hard to control, or is it going to be potentially really cool and really, really hard hitting? I think the theme is absolutely spot on, and that's the most important thing for me. I think a game that's designed with that kind of benefit of they can hit hard, but then there's this payoff here is the right way. I know that there will be a viewpoint from the metal point of view on the tournament scene. Is it too much of a risk for that kind of army to be run, or is it absolutely is perfect? Let's go for it. We're going to win some games with this. It'd be really cool to see how the discussion on that goes in the coming weeks and months. Now we move on to the Guardians of the Eternal Groves, and that's that second army of infamy, and of course the lore first that sort of sets it all up and gives the theme around it. As before, I won't read that to you or spoil the main theme around that. You can enjoy that yourselves as you pick up your own books, but it's very nicely presented. We've got more colour art and photo work as well. Now let's have a look at the Wood Elf Realms Host of Talsyn, which is the second army of infamy, and one that feels very much like it's an infantry force and not just an infantry shooting force. There's some things in this and in some other profiles that support it. They're very much looking at that combat style Wood Elves as well, which is maybe something that's quite challenging in the meta at the moment. So maybe there are some answers in here to help that out. Maybe there isn't at the moment, and that will be a lot of the discussions around this, I think. But let's have a look at it anyway. I love it. I love infantry based armies, so it draws me in. But whether it will work for people who play in a competitive level on a tournament scene, I'm not so sure. But let's have a look. We have 0 to 1 Glade Lord Spellweaver per 1,000 points, 0 to 1 Treeman Ancient per 1,000 points, 0 to 1 Warden of Talsyn per 1,000 points, and that's a new profile that we'll cover shortly. 0 to 1 Shadow Dancer per unit of War Dancers taken, and Glade Captains, Spell Singers, and Branch Wraiths. And then your core, so 25%, again, not that minimum 33 that we've seen with the High Elves recently. But the one plus here isn't Glade Guard, it's actually Eternal Guard, which is interesting. I like that and don't like that at the same time, but I'll discuss that more when we talk about another new unit which is in this book and how that interacts when I try to write a list for this. Dryads, and then we've got 0 to 1 unit of Glade Guard per 1,000 points, and 0 to 1 unit of Deepwood Scouts may be taken as a core choice. So you are limiting your Glade Guard a little bit there. So in a 2,000 point force, you're going to have 2 units, unless you want 2 really massive unwieldy units. You're maybe limiting your bow shots there, but that's also going to be naturally limited by your points a little bit. But with the Deepwood Scouts, you can get your shots back up, but you maybe not have quite as many you see in some other army lists. Special Deepwood Scouts, Guardians of Talsyn, which we will cover. They are essentially a beefed up version of Eternal Guard. Wildwood Rangers and Sisters of the Thorn. Still there, the Sisters, no doubt they will be squeezed in. And then 0 to 2 units of Treekin per 1,000 points. Rare, and we have Treemen, War Dancers, and then 0 to 3 Great Eagles. And then your Battle Standard Bearer can be that Warden of Talsyn, which is that new profile, much the way that we saw with the High Elf Realms as well. So this one's already looking quite different, but let's have a look at those special rules and see how they bring it to life. Ancient Enemies, that basically means this army gets Hatred Beastmen, which is cool and thematic, but obviously it's a situation as well. In tune with nature, gives your mages, your Treemen Ancients, your Branch Wraiths access to the Law of the Wilds law, which is a new law in this book we'll see a little bit later on. You can't have access to it for free outside of this army of infamy. Protectors of the Ancient Wood is a controlling special feature rule when if you're a host of Talsyn army, they'll get rerolls to hit and to wound of a natural 1 during the combat phase. A nice little buff. There is a way of getting something similar you can purchase as well. And then we have the Awakened Wood. Within the host of Talsyn army, any number of units of Dryads and Tree King may have the Ambushes special rule at the cost of 1 point per model. In addition, Treemen and Treemen Ancients may have the Ambushes special rule at the cost of 10 points per model. So basically you're getting Ambushes at the cost if you want to. Now, I really love this one, and you can see the synergies that are built with it through the Warden of Talsyn, which we'll see the profile for, and the Guardians of Talsyn as well. You kind of really want them in there to be the core, but what you end up there with is essentially 2 units of Eternal Guard, one even more buffed up, because you've got the +1 core of your usual Eternal Guard, and suddenly, before you know it, in order to have a big enough unit to make a difference, you've got an awful lot of points tied up with that. We'll discuss that more as we get onto their profiles, because they're all really cool, and the theme is perfect. It's brilliant. There's no problem with it at all. But I think if you were taking it to an event and it was competitive-ish, you may well find that so much of your points have gone into that, you're struggling to get all the other things you need in there. Maybe enough shots, because with Wood Elves you really still want to take your shots, and maybe something that can kill monsters as well. But there will be people that can write this better than me. But I really like the theme. I feel like the competitive conversation on it may well be, well, it's a bit too expensive, can't squeeze enough this or that in. But who knows, I might be completely wrong. That's just my first impressions. And it's amazing how we get all these first impressions, including mine and people that play more competitive games, and then 6 months down the line, people are making these army lists work when they discover new things and things shift in the meta. And we don't know whether infantry will change in the future and whether we will see more of those scenarios where you need infantry to score, which would be really cool, and suddenly all of these things get reevaluated. Now it's time to have a look at the new profiles in this book. There are essentially 5 new entries to the Wood Elf Realms army list. There's 2 special characters, 1 character and 2 units, but let's take a closer look. First up we have Orion, King of the Woods, and he is a beast and beastly priced as well at 455 points, which you would expect, but he's movement 9, weapon skill 8, ballistic skill 6, strength and toughness 5, 5 wounds, initiative 8, 5 attacks, leadership 10, and of course he's got his hounds as well. He has Cloak of Isha, which essentially gives him a 5-up ward save, and then at the start of each turn you roll a d6. On a 5-up he recovers a lost wound as well. He has the Horn of the Wild, which means that once per game he can call it, and everything in his command range gets frenzy as well, which could be really cool at particular points of the game, which I like that. It sounds really thematic and potentially very good on the tabletop as well, which is always a nice mix. He's causes fear, got frenzy, immune to psychology, move through cover, manage resistance 2, open order, stomps, d3+2, strikes first, terror, and unbreakable. And then his hounds have got fear, frenzy, immune to psychology, magic attacks, move through cover, open order, spectral hounds, unbreakable. And they are only wounded by magical attacks as well. So this is really quite cool. And then we've got the Hawks, Talon, which is range 30, strength as usual, so 5, and AP -1, magical attacks, multiple shots. And then the Spear of Kurnos, which has got a ranged attack, which is strength +1, -2 AP, magical attacks, multiple wounds. And then in combat, it's the same as well, essentially. So you can throw it or you can stab with it, and it's pretty cool. And then the note on there has got the through and through special rule if you're using it for range, which is pretty nice. We have Aralath, Lord of Talsyn, a little bit more conservative than Orion, but still pretty cool. Good Lord stats with a bit of an extra buff there. So movement 5, weapon skill 8, ballistic skill 7, strength 4 as per Wood Elves, toughness 3, 3 wounds, initiative 8, 4 attacks, leadership 10, 170 points, which I think is the same as Isha Vest. It ignores all negative modifiers with his leadership characteristic, using the boldest to bold special rule there, so that's cool, goes with his lore as well. Favour of the Goddess gives him a 5-up ward, so it's built in, you got your ward. Obviously he's a Wood Elf, so still very, very easy to kill, and because he's not mounted or anything, you're going to want him in a unit, probably of your Guardians of Talsyn, to try and keep him alive. We have Spear of Talsyn is his weapon, so it's only strength as user, which is going to be 4, -1 AP, armor bay, magic attacks. Again, not particularly killy, so you've got very good weapon skill there, but it's not going to take down lots, so it feels more like an infantry leader or killer there. Scouring the Eye Thief is the cool thing. That's his hawk or his bird of prey, which is an 18-inch attack, flying attack essentially, strength 4, AP -1 as well. And he does some really cool stuff. So if it suffers an unsaved wound, its weapon skill initiative characteristics are reduced by D3 to a minimum of 1. So really fun little debuff there. I quite like that. So it's a fun character, loads of narrative, and I like Scouring the Eye Thief there. That's a really nice touch. The rest of it, I wonder whether it's really going to jump out at the page to people from a more competitive mindset, but I love it from a sort of a narrative, and I think it works really well, like I said, in those units of Guardians of Talsyn in that Army of Infamy, if you're playing that narrative style combat or a more relaxed casual game. Wardens of Talsyn. This is that new kind of level of character that we see before, where the profile fits somewhere between the captain and the full lord level. It's 125 points, movement 5, you've got your weapon skill 7 there, and that's the kind of the buff over the normal captain. Remember, this guy can be a BSB, where you're probably going to take him as that if you're taking him. Ballistic skill 4, strength 4, toughness 3, wounds 3, initiative 6, 4 attacks, leadership 9. Standard hand weapons, Azrai Spear and light armor. You can replace the Azrai Spear if you want to. I'm guessing you probably won't. If you're going to be using with the Guardians of Talsyn, which I think is what it's designed for, and if you're going to take him, that's more likely where you're going to have him. May take a shield, you're going to want that, and if you don't, you're going to want a magical shield, I imagine, as well. And they may purchase magical items up to 75 points. You've got Close Order, Courage Beyond, Compare, which basically means that the unit you're in, if it's a Guardians of Talsyn unit, gains immune to psychology roll. So this is all those synergies build. Also has parry as well. It said when fighting with a hand weapon and shield, or Azrai Spear and shield, this unit improves its armor value by 1. Interesting, it says unit rather than model. I don't know if it's supposed to convey that the unit that it's within gets that as well. I'm not sure, but parry is good as well. So if you're taking a normal shield there, suddenly you've got a 4-up save. You can get a ward in there as well. That's pretty good. It's a way of keeping your wood elves alive a little bit longer. So I quite like it. It's not a cheap character, especially when you add the 25 points to make it into a BSB. But if you're going that whole hog on theme and getting all those synergies in with the next unit, then you may well go with it. And I quite like this. It was in some of my lists when I started playing around with it. And then we have those Guardians of Talsyn, which are essentially beefed up Eternal Guard. And I really love these, but they are pricey. So you've got your Eternal Guard stat line, your weapon skill 5 there, but you have 2 attacks, which is where some of the extra points coming for. These are 18 points a miniature, and they do have a host of extra special rules over the normal Eternal Guard as well. You can upgrade your characters as usual to have your champion, your standard, and your musician, and then special rules are close order, drilled, elven reflexes, martial prowess, move through cover, parry. So you've got your parry already, the same as your Wardens of Talsyn would be. So that's good. So you imagine both units of those with their 4 up. Save their stubborn and veteran. So with your drilled, your stubborn and veteran, and your increased attacks, that's where the extra points are coming from over your Eternal Guard, which I believe are 15, so extra 3 points. You're getting a lot for your points. Martial prowess is pretty cool as well. So a unit with a special rule may make supporting attacks to the rank or rear as well as its front. And then just like the Eternal Guard, you've got your extra fight an extra rank with the Azrai Spear as well. So this becomes a really cool unit. I really like this, and if it wasn't a meta where infantry is struggling a little bit, I can see this being really, really popular, and maybe it will be in the future as we need more units like this, hopefully, to score points and things. And it just says representing this unit in the game, just paint it slightly differently, so you're adding the livery, the white livery of Talsyn. I really like these, and I mentioned when I talked about the army list where I came up with a little bit of a headache with them, that you end up wanting a unit of a sort of 18, 20. You want a big enough unit of them, because while you can bust their saves up to 4+, they're still wood elves. They're still going to die with a toughness of 3. But because I had to take Eternal Guard as core +1, and they needed to be a similar size, I found I had these 2 big blocks of core infantry, which is what I want. I want my army to look like that. But by the time you've got this on the table with your BSB in it as well, and I already gave up on Araloth, that you're talking 600-700 points for your Eternal Guard, a unit of these, plus your BSB. That's a huge chunk on stuff without loads of damage output at the moment. So from a meta point of view, I'm not so sure they'll be taken. Now, if these had become core in that Army of Infamy instead of Eternal Guard, maybe if you took a Warden as a BSB, you were allowed to take them to a core or something like that, then I think they would have been seen if they were the only unit. But because you need the Eternal Guard as well as these, because they have to be taken, then you get those 2. I do wonder whether that total points cost will be different. But I still love to have the idea of having an army with Army of Infamy of Talsyn with the 2 blocks of infantry in it, and I may well still do it because I play pretty casually. But I do like these. I do wonder though the total cost of them, along with that tax of having to have them in this Army of Infamy and having to have them with the Eternal Guard as well already, then you're kind of doubling up on the same kind of unit. Now onto something that's really cool and fun, because those old miniatures coming back is just lovely to see. I don't know how popular this will be. I know people will pick up them because of the miniatures and will want to have them in their armies. How good this will do, I don't know. I really can't get my head around this one at the moment, so I'll be really interested to see what people think in the comments about whether they have, how the use will be. Will it purely be for narrative games and casual games, or do they have a competitive element as well? Because I'm interested in all elements of the game and how it sort of balances out, but it's fun. Wood Elf Beast Packs can be taken in the Grand Army as rare, which is nice because the last 2 entries are only for the 1 Army of Infamy. Obviously both special characters can be taken with either. 11 points for your Beastkeeper, and then it's +8 points for a Deepwood Hound, +6 for a Forest Cat, +11 for a Sylvan Boar, and +20 for a Bear of Lauren. And as you can imagine, these are all different animals. All the beasts should be on 25 by 50 mil bases, but they get motley crew because they've obviously all got different stat lines and do different things. Run with the pack special rule means that they're not undisciplined while the Beastkeeper stays with them, which makes a lot of sense. They've got elven reflexes, motley crew, move through cover, run with the pack, and skirmishers. That's the Beastkeeper, and then the special rules are different for each of the other animals. So they've all got motley crew, as you can imagine. The Deepwood Hound's got run with the pack, skirmishers, and warband. The Forest Cat has got armor main 1, 1, Motley Crew, Run with the Pack and Skirmishers. Sylvan Boar, Furious Charge, Motley Crew, Razor Tusk, Run with the Pack and Skirmishers. And the Bear of Lauren, Armoured Hide 1, Cleaving Blow, Fear, Motley Crew, Run with the Pack and Skirmishers. So there's so much going on here. And they're cool. I mean, the Razor Tusk gives you an armor piercing characteristic improved by 1. There's lots of little bits. I'm sure people will come up with their own ideas of combinations that do particular jobs. I'm not going to try and make this video any longer than it's already going to be by doing that, but I just think it's cool to see them returning and have this kind of thing in the army list. So a little bit lighter there on new profiles compared to some army lists, but we've got a little bit more coming up as well. So those pages are filled with other things. We've got Kindreds and we've got a whole lore of magic as well. And of course, all the magic items. Wood Elf Kindreds, I think these are really fun and just give you another avenue to buff up your characters a little bit, add a little bit extra where you need something, you've got a job they need to do, and you'll see that when you see the abilities. But they're split into 2 groups. You've got Altar Kindreds and Noble Kindreds, and they can't be mixed and matched. Essentially, if you choose an Altar Kindred, you can't then choose a Noble Kindred. There are 4 in each pool. The Altar Kindreds, Aspect to the Hound is the first one for 20 points. Your character and the unit they have joined are re-rolling natural 1s in the combat phase. So useful, straightforward, you can see what it does. Aspect of the Bear, 15 points. Infantry or cavalry only. Character adopts this aspect of the Bear, increases its strength and toughness by 1, which is really cool, especially for Wood Elves who traditionally struggle in those areas on their profile. And you're definitely looking to increase strength quite a lot. This might be a really good combo with something else to really get that strength up, to help you kill monsters, that kind of thing. Aspect of the Boar, 10 points. That character adopts aspect of the Boar, improves the armor piercing characteristic of its weapons by 1 during a turn which is charged, and it gains the impact hits 1 special rule. So again, a really cool thing that this makes them hit a little bit harder sometimes, which is not always the case for Wood Elves. Aspect of the Cat, 10 points. A character who adopts the aspect of the cat gains the Armor Bane 1 special rule and may re-roll fail rolls to hit during a challenge. Noble Kindreds, so we have a Glamour Weave Kindred, so Wood Elf Mages only, character belongs to the Glamour Weave, has a 5-up ward and gains the Tree Spirit special rule, so it's just another way of gaining a ward. And when you've got these very squishy Wood Elf characters, you can quite quickly run out of the special magic armor and talismans that are available in the army lists for your characters. So this is just another way of doing it. At 25 points, I think this will be taken, and Tree Spirit can be really useful as well. Eternal Kindred, 20 points. It's an infantry only thing. Belonging to the Eternal Kindred, any unit they have joined may re-roll any hits of a natural 1 during the combat phase. In addition, a character belonging to the Eternal Kindred and any unit they have joined may re-roll failed rolls to wound during the combat phase while within 6 inches of a special feature. So there's a little crossover there with the feature in the Army of Infamy, but again, I think that will be taken. That's really, really useful. Wild Rider Kindred, 20 points, and it's Wood Elf Nobles only, and you have to be mounted on a steed or a stag, but they basically gain the counter charge, frenzy, furious charge and talismanic tattoo special rules, so very thematic there. And then the Scout Kindred is 15 points, infantry only, and they gain the quick shot and scout special rules. This brings us nicely on to Lore of the Wilds, a brand new full magic lore for the Wood Elves, but it can only be taken for free with the Host of Talsyn Army of Infamy. But there is a magic item that you can pay for so that a particular mage can use this, but it's not something that obviously a Treeman Ancient or something is going to be able to take, unless I've completely misread these rules. But let's have a look at the lore anyway. We'll start with the Swirling Mist signature spell. So it's a casting value of 8, range self, and it's the caster obviously or the unit they are in, and any shooting attacks directed at them, they'll have to re-roll hits of a natural 6. Fury Vathloren is a 10 plus, range 18. The target enemy unit suffers D3 plus 1 strength, 6 hits with an AP of -2, multiple wounds, 2 special rules. So a pretty straightforward magic missile. Ariel's Blessing is an enchantment, casting value 9 plus, range 10. Until the start of your next turn subphase, the target for any unit gains the regen 5 plus special roll, so pretty useful that one. Spiteful Torrent is a magical vortex, 10 plus, casting range 15, 3-inch blast template that moves randomly d6 each turn, and it's 3d6 strength, 2 hits, each with an AP of -1. Dirthu's Wrath is an assailment, 10 plus, combat range, so each miniature in that fighting rank with the caster takes an initiative test, and if they fail they suffer D3 strength 4 hits with no armor save, that they can take their wards and regens. Next up we have Hidden Pathways. It's the conveyance spell, 8 plus cast, range 12, and the target unit makes the reserve move and can perform a quick turn. And finally, Sapping Blight, which is a hex with a 9+ casting value, range 12, and the target unit suffers D3 modifier to its strength, which is pretty cool debuff there. Would be lovely if it was toughness as well to help the Wood Elves out with their strength deficiency there, but it'll definitely help keep some Wood Elves alive. I'm really looking forward to seeing in the comments what you guys think of that lore, whether it's something that you think will be taken, and you can take it outside the Army of Infamy. There's a magic item we'll see in a moment that enables you to do that, and it's whether it's worth paying the small amount of points to be able to do that. I'm not blown away by the signature spell, so maybe at lower level wizards that's not something you'd see, but again, I don't play competitively. I really like the main spells there. They feel like there's a real nice toolbox of different buffs and debuffs and things there, and movement shenanigans. I like it. It feels like there's a lot there, and you've got a good range. So if you have a level 4 and you're able to take an extra spell or something as well, having choice for all those spells, I think you'll have, like I said, a nice toolbox to do it. But again, let me know in the comments what you think of it. And then finally, let's move on to the magic items. And this is the last part of the book, and I'll probably skip through these at pace, and they've probably already been leaked by now anyway, but there's some nice things in here, and it really adds to the existing range of magic items that are common, and also in the Grand Army list for the Wood Elves already. Vol's Wrath looks pretty cool. It is a whopping 55 points, but again, it's something that's adding some strength there, so it's a 32-inch range shot with flaming attacks and magical attacks and multiple wounds as well. +1 strength and AP2, so I do like that. You're obviously only adding that to fairly low strength, but it may see some play, but it may be too expensive. Death's Reaper is 40 points, and again that adds a little bit of extra strength there and gives you magical attacks. I like it. It's a sight buff. Again, it's 40 points is quite pricey, already adding to what is relatively low strength in the first place, so it still might not work. Hunt Master's Pride at 35 points. Again, is something that's quite cool to help you in your combat, but it's only strength as user, but it does have AP2 magical attacks and multiple wounds as well. So if you're going up against low toughness enemies, these things are quite good, and again, it's a little bit cheaper. Blades of Endless Flame, 25 points. Again, combat strength -1. AP, so strength is still as user there. Extra attacks, flaming attacks, magical attacks, very similar to the previous one. Going up against standard stuff or low toughness stuff could be pretty good, but again, I'll be interested to see what you guys think. So we move on to the magical armor. There's 2 entries here. We've got Mantle of Rebirth. It's 40 points. Again, not cheap, but when you've run out of your Talisman of Protections and all of the other things, this could be handy. And the Mantle of Rebirth gives you light armor and a 5-up regen as well. And you can also stack that maybe with a ward or something if you really want to try and keep someone important alive. So I think that will be taken. Cloak of Tumbling Leaves is fun. It's 30 points, and it basically gives you fly and swift stride, so it basically turns them into Superman. And then we go on to Talismans. Ariel's Favor, 30 points, and that's magical resistance too, so more kinds of protection. And Orion's Favor, 25 points, and it's a single use there, and it can reroll any failed rolls to hit or to wound during the combat phase. There are other ways of getting that buff, maybe more points efficient ways of getting it. Magical Standard. Now, I love this one, but it is a whopping 80 points. And I originally, when I started writing that Talsyn list I was talking about and spending all those points on all those spear-wielding infantry, I had this in there as well. I thought, let's go the whole hog and design the army list the way the theme was going. And those things just start to come out when you run out of points. But at 80 points, you do get a lot. Increases the command range to 18. So you could stick this on your BSB with and really have that as your control center. I quite like that. In addition, training units with the bearer's command range improve their leadership by 1, so you're going to be quite often having a leadership of 9 in that instance, which does make it good. So a leadership 9, 18-inch bubble can really help out an infantry based army if you've got your Guardians of Talsyn and Eternal Guard there. But 80 points just really makes it quite expensive when you start adding all these synergies together. Then we have the Banner of the Wild Hunt at 25 points, and it's basically a +1 combat result, so very similar to your War Banner, but you get to reroll pursuit rolls as well, so it's a bit of theme in there. Quite like that. If you're taking that kind of mounted unit, you're likely to take that maybe. Standard of the Morning Chill, 25 points. The bearer of the Standard of the Morning Chill can cast a swirling mist as a level 2 bound spell, and it's the signature spell that I didn't think was so amazing, but depending on how situational you're doing it and the way you're building your army, this might be perfect. Just give you a way of protecting that unit. It could be really important. And the banner is Springtide, 20 points, and basically gives you a quick shot special rule. Enchanted items, Crown of Antlers, 35 points. Crown of Antlers gives the wearer armor bane and impact hits D3, and those impact hits have that armor piercing characteristic of 2. So let me know what you think. Looks like it's pretty cool, but also, again, these things always get squeezed out when you write points lists. And then we have the Moon of the Hidden Ways for 30 points, and it's a single use. The wearer of the Moonstone Hidden Ways may cast the Forest Walker spell from the lore of Athel Loren, and a bound spell with the power level of 3. So this is the movement one. Again, cool, but you're going to pay 30 points to do that once. I'm not so sure if you're going to do that kind of stuff. You probably have the whole lore, but I may be wrong, let me know. And then we have Blight Tipped Arrows at 15 points. I like this one. It's single use. I love it if you could add it to a whole unit, but maybe that would be a little bit too much. But essentially, if you wound with this Blight Tipped Arrows on subsequent turns, the target takes a toughness test, and if they fail, they can suffer a subsequent wound. So it's a nice way of chipping away at something. Imagine getting this on a character or something early on, just getting that basic wound on. But again, if it's something that's hard to kill, they're probably going to have a high toughness as well. But it's not too expensive, that one, so it may well see some use. Arcane items, we have Orb of Midsummer for 35 points, and once per turn, you may reroll a casting roll. Again, very useful if you've got something that's really important that you want to get off, that you need to get off early as part of your battle plan. This could be great. 35 points, I do wonder if it's going to be squeezed out by other things, especially just items to keep your magic user alive, maybe. Heartwood Pendant, and this is a common item, which is important. It's 15 points, so not too expensive as well, and you wouldn't expect it to be, but it's the way you can get the Law of the Wilds into your Grand Army list or your Orion-based hunt list. Basically anything outside of that army of infamy. And I think that the tale of the telling there will be whether people want the Law of the Wilds or not. As I said, I quite like it. It speaks to me. I quite like the nice range of spells. But if people don't like that law, this will never be used. But if it's as good as I think it might be, or have the potential, then we may well see people painting this 15 points in order to have it. And then the final one is the Sigil of the Mage Queen at 25 points. It's a single use as well, and it's basically a +2 modifier to a casting roll. Again, very much if there's something you really need to get off early in the game, it's really important for setting something up, it might be worth paying the money to make sure you do it. There we are. That's the end of another Arcane journal and another book I've thoroughly enjoyed reading. Aside from any competitive meta kind of conversations, and I know they often end up that way, and I do myself, I think it's a great book. It's well presented, has some really cool themes running throughout of that. There'll always be conversations around the competitive side of the game. You can see that in the focus on YouTube itself and what channels and the kind of conversations they're having and the views they get over narrative style of stuff. That's cool, that's fine, that's what people want. So it is worth having those conversations, but also worth not forgetting that this game is designed as a wide-ranging game, not just as a competitive game. People play it competitively, but there is another side to it. So I don't like to discount anything purely based on that's too expensive or that's not going to work or people won't take that. But as I have throughout this review, and you will have heard, I have made comments or asked questions around, I wonder if people at events will be taking this because of that. And I'm genuinely interested in both sides of that. I love my casual narrative games at home and my narrative and casual games with friends of Warhammer World and things, but I'm also interested in attending some events, and I like the way the competitive scene kind of grows and develops and the meta changes a little bit as well. I do hope that what we've seen with the inventory push, I suppose, in that second army of infamy, that there is something down the line which makes inventory more important in the game than it is now at a competitive level, because then that will really bring that army and maybe some of the others in other Arcane journals to life a lot more. So I'm hopeful that's something we're going to see. But do let me know what you think in the comments below and comment on any part of it. It doesn't just have to be about a competitive meta. I'm really interested in what you think about. You're excited about the lore and how it may develop, the narrative scenario, the artwork, anything to do with that book at all. But let me know in the comments below what you think of it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, found that useful, maybe giving you an idea if Wood Elves are the army for you to collect next or start collecting, or how you might expand your existing Wood Elf army if you've already been collecting them, maybe through previous editions, or maybe just since the start of the old world through use of the Grand Army. As I've mentioned earlier on, I don't know what's been leaked ahead of time, so my comments are just genuinely me reading through the book for the first time and giving my honest thoughts on it. I think it's great. I love these Arcane journals and what they do from a wider point of view on the game in terms of adding lore and narrative. Each one of these Arcane journals just fills in the game a little bit more and brings it that little step closer to what we were used to before in the days of Warhammer Fantasy. Not quite there, because these books are smaller, of course, than the old army books, and you can't squeeze as much into them, but we are edging back there, and that really excites me. The game that I love most out of all tabletop war games ever is starting to become the game I recognise more and more. A little way to go. We can keep our fingers crossed that legacy factions will start to return in the future, but there's exciting other things coming in the future as well, and I'm sure, like me, you're all excited about the future with Cathay and what that might bring. But if you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, drop a comment below. I'd love to get the comments going about what people think about the unit entries, but also the lore and the narrative and all those things as well. So talk about anything at all to do with the book. I'd be really interested to know your thoughts and what your plans are for your own hobby with it, if you plan to do something with them at all. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. There's loads of old world stuff on there, and hopefully I'll keep being able to give you early access to things like this if Games Workshop keep kindly sending it to me, which is very, very cool. And I know how privileged I am to get these things ahead of time and able to make videos like this. If you'd like to support me and support the channel, Patreon really is the best way you can do that. It helps pay for the time that it takes me to make and edit and record and do these kind of videos. I appreciate not everyone can do that or would want to do that, and that's equally fine as well. There's lots of other links in my video description, including the channel sponsor Counterattack Bases, so please do go and check them out. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.